Thank you for participating in the Nevada Department of Education's test security training. This fulfills the annual required training for all school test coordinators, test administrators, and proctors. In this session, we'll discuss the importance of test security to maintain a valid and reliable assessment. We'll look at some best practices to keep administration secure, and finally, we'll talk about some specific policies in Nevada. Things we touch on in this presentation are covered in detail in manuals that personnel should familiarize themselves with, including the NDE Test Security Procedures Manual, your district and school test security procedures, the Usability, Accessibility, and Accommodations Guide, and the Test Administrator and Test Coordinator Manuals. Test security training is required by state law, which outlines the responsibilities of the people involved in order to minimize errors and to provide uniform procedures in administration. Every student must be given the opportunity to have a fair and valid testing experience. Equitable and actionable results depend on consistent administration. Be aware of the testing environment. Make sure there's nothing that can guide a student through a process. The Nevada Department of Education reserves the right to conduct on-site inspections to ensure security procedures are maintained. Know and follow your policies for securing phones and other electronic devices during testing. Any behavior intended to inappropriately increase a score could be considered cheating. Here are just a few examples. Accountability assessments are also vulnerable to being stolen or shared online in a number of ways. Data forensics after testing has the potential to reveal anomalies that could lead to further investigations. Psychometricians from multiple vendors will be looking at the data. Social media and evolving technologies add additional degrees of difficulty. Administrators need to remain vigilant in making sure that unauthorized devices are not present and test content remains secure. Now let's look at some administration basics. Administrators must follow published procedures. No unsupervised breaks are allowed. Personal belongings and non-permissible materials are prohibited. Electronic devices are prohibited unless they are required for test administration or if a student has an accommodation for a specific permissible device. Test takers and their screens are closely and regularly monitored. Teachers, when practicable, should not monitor their own classrooms. Now let's look at some specifics for test administration in Nevada. Any individuals involved with state-mandated assessments must be trained in security procedures. Records of those trainings must be kept for 3 school years. The test administrator is responsible for all testing activities at the classroom level and must be a licensed Nevada educator. They must be present in the testing location at all times. Licensed substitutes, including long-term subs, may serve as test administrators. Proctors assisting with test administration may be unlicensed, but must not be unsupervised in the testing room. Accommodations and supports allow for equitable access to test content and are covered in detail elsewhere. Some quick reminders: appropriate accommodations and designated supports must be selected in DRC's Insight portal prior to administration. In some cases, that's done at the district level. Test coordinators should be sure to provide non-embedded accommodation and support information to classroom test administrators. The best insurance against an accommodation's irregularity is to have a check in place at the classroom level. Inform students in advance of what is expected of them. Electronic devices, other than those required for test administration, are prohibited unless a student has an accommodation that allows a specific permissible device. Students inappropriately interacting with other students is prohibited. All instances of cheating will result in invalid scores. The district will need to invalidate the scores in the Insight system. No unauthorized individuals may be present in the testing room. This includes parents, community volunteers, students, and staff who are not participating in testing. Similar to training, document all individuals present and maintain for 3 years. Many irregularities can be avoided by checking that students have the appropriate test ticket with their accommodations if needed and their personal items are inaccessible. During the session, you must maintain a quiet, test-conducive environment. Scripts should be read verbatim. No assistance may be provided to students other than general testing directions. Students should be actively monitored. A few quick words about test tickets. Follow the instructions in the test administrator's manual for handling specifics. Some tests require collection and redistribution of tickets. Test tickets contain personally identifiable information and must be treated as secure materials. If a student tests with another student's ticket or tests without the required accommodations or supports, test administrators must report the incident to your school test coordinator immediately and wait for further instructions. Do not retest the student until you've been notified that the test has been regenerated. Scratch paper is also secure and must be collected after each test session or part. Fresh scratch paper may be distributed at the beginning of a new session or part. The only exception to this rule is on the smarter summative math and ELA performance tasks, where students' scratch paper may be collected and redistributed to those same students between two parts of the same task. Breaks must be supervised. Unlicensed personnel may supervise breaks occurring outside of the testing environment. The computer adaptive test is an exception because students will not be able to go back to test content they have previously seen. Online tests may be paused for up to 20 minutes, and a countdown timer will appear on the screen. These tests lock after 20 minutes of inactivity, overnight, or when a student submits a test. The school test coordinator must notify the district test director if there are any interruptions or errors, including technology problems, illness, or student errors navigating the testing system. Disclosure of test content is strictly prohibited. It is the property of NDE and it is copyright protected. Photographing, recording, or transmitting any part of a test or testing session is prohibited. Exceptions include the Nevada Alternate Assessment, which is a recorded administration, and when coordinators are gathering potential irregularity evidence. Do not read, review, look at, copy, or take notes on test content. Accommodation providers and caregivers who will be exposed to test content must sign a confidentiality agreement prior to testing. Specific instructions for testing homebound students are available in the Test Security Procedures Manual. Immediate notification of a potential irregularity is required by law. The school test coordinator or principal will complete an online report using the Cavion Core incident tracking software. Both the NDE and districts are obligated to investigate if there's reason to believe an irregularity has occurred. Possible consequences may include invalid scores, corrective actions, or license sanctions. Remember, the principal has the ultimate responsibility for all testing activities and is required to cooperate with investigations. Here is the department contact information for district communications. Thank you for your cooperation.